Welcome to Nature's Guardians. I'm Micah Siegel. Each week, I talk with people working to save and help animals around the world. They are nature's guardians, and you can become one too. Today, I'm talking with Cheryl McCarron from Shark Angels. Welcome, Cheryl.
Hi, Micah. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us. To start, tell us about your background and how you got where you are now.
So I learned to scuba dive in New England in very, very cold waters. And when I moved to New York, I didn't know anyone who scuba dove, and I joined a dive club and I met Julie Anderson and Jamie Pollock, who were the founders of Shark Angels. I hadn't seen a shark at that point, wasn't sure how I felt about them, but I knew that I was interested in what they were doing. So I started volunteering with them. When I finally got to dive in warm waters, I finally got to see sharks for myself, realized how amazing and beautiful they are. Also realized that 99% of the time they had no interest in me. So it led me to really want to understand why people have this terrible fear, when the reality is that most of the time sharks don't really want anything to do with us, and we are actually causing them far more damage than they do to us. So I continued volunteering, and I'm now an employee of Shark Angels.
Okay. What do you do at Shark Angels?
So we are a fairly small organization. My official title is Education and Outreach Director, and that encompasses a whole lot of stuff since there's not a whole lot of us at the core. We do have a lot of volunteers who do a lot of little things for us, but overall I do presentations for kids and adults all over the world and in person. I do trade shows and talk to people there. I do fundraising. I help to get products for our store. I help to work with Jamie to get legislation passed. And we work on videos and positive media for Shark Angels. I also have a database I work on called the Laws and Loopholes database, which talks about shark laws and why they may not be working.
Very interesting. So, do you have a presentation for our audience today?
Yeah, I do have some slides I can show you. Lots of different things that are threatening sharks, but one of the most common that people know about is shark finning. Up to 100 million sharks are killed every year just for their fins, and it's a brutal practice where the fins are sliced off the sharks while they are alive. There are laws against this in most countries of the world. It doesn't stop it from happening, though. And this, it's a bowl of soup that this is for. It's shark fin soup, and shark cartilage is a gelatinous, tasteless substance. So they usually use fish broth or chicken broth to actually give the soup flavor. This soup can cost up to $100 a bowl, and it's just a status symbol. It's not feeding a population that needs it. So there's no need for this soup to be decimating millions of sharks every year. The other thing is shark products. So a lot of times people are very aware of shark fins, and they say, well, I'm not part of the problem. I don't eat shark fin soup. Well, shark cartilage and shark liver oil, and their shark, as well as shark fins, they can all be used in different products. So shark leather is often used for interiors and furniture. You can find Mako jerky on the market. Pet food contains shark sometimes. Lipstick in forms of squalene and squalene. Sometimes that is plant derived, sometimes it's shark derived. Unless you do your research, you don't know which you're getting. Souvenirs like baby sharks in jars, and joint supplements are one of the places you're going to find chondroitin. And it's not information that is readily available. It'll just say chondroitin on some of these supplements. So unless you go digging, you don't know the source. So sharks are they're an apex predator in most populations, and in some they're actually a mid-level predator, but they help maintain the entire food web and health of the ocean. So sharks are great at eliminating all the weak population of fish, so it keeps the fish population healthy. But an interesting thing is, in areas sometimes when they've decimated the sharks, it affects the health of the area all the way down to the level of the coral. So if you get rid of, say, the population the groupers that are eating the parrotfish with the herbivores aren't there to eat the algae off the coral, and it can smother the corals. So keeping that balance is vital, and at the rate that humans are removing the sharks from the ocean, it's completely unsustainable. So this is a good illustration here of the scallop collapse that happened decades ago, where we eliminated all the sharks in the north, or a huge amount of the sharks in the northeast. They were not there to control the cow-nosed ray population, and the cow-nosed ray population ate all of the scallops and the shellfish, which decimated the shellfish industry. So we rely on a healthy ocean for economics, for recreation, for safety for the coastal areas from storms. So all of this is kept in balance by healthy shark populations. This slide actually makes a good point that living sharks are more vital to the economy than dead sharks. So you can harvest a shark and sell it once, whereas a living shark in an area, the money gained through ecotourism brings lots of money to local communities, not just the divers and boat operations bringing tourists out there, but hotels, restaurants, the whole community benefits from thriving ecotourism.
Can you give us some numbers on shark populations?
Yeah, so there are over 540 different species of sharks in the world. And we know right now that 2/3 of those are threatened with extinction. Again, as I mentioned, the amount of overfishing is completely unsustainable. And even though we put laws in place, it doesn't necessarily protect the sharks because a lot of this illegal activity is happening far out to sea where we're not able to see what's happening. One of the species that we think has rebounded is actually great white sharks. We're starting to see better numbers with great whites. You see a lot more of them along the Cape Cod coast. And one of the reasons for that is that the seal population has rebounded down there. So you've got more great whites feed because they now have something to feed on in that area.
Tell us about the market for shark meat.
Yeah, so a lot of countries have put in place laws against finning and saying that the entire shark has to be landed whole, which in theory sounds great. You're not hurting a shark that's alive. The problem is that it has definitely given rise to a larger market for shark meat. Problem with shark meat is when you have these large species like mako, is what's called bioaccumulation. So they are feeding on fish below them, and the concentration of mercury and chemicals in them is just more and more concentrated as you get bigger species. The concentration of the average mako shark is 6 times higher of mercury than what the EPA is safe, what they say. So it's actually toxic to start eating meat from some of these sharks. The other really gross thing is shark meat is full of urea. That's literally urine. Shark meat smells terrible, so most chefs will use lots of seasonings and spices to overcome the stench of urine that's in the shark meat. So there's really nothing appetizing or healthy about eating shark meat. Unfortunately, the industry, because they want to be able to make the money, is marketing it as a great source of protein. It's not such a great source, though.
I've spoken with experts who believe that a total ban in ivory and rhino horn is the best option for the animal, and I agree. So what's your thinking about a total ban on shark trade?
I agree. The challenge, so in December of 2022, we finally got the Shark Fin Sales Elimination Act passed here in the United States. It took 7 years to get this passed. It puts a total ban on the sale and trade of shark fins in the United States. The dissension on this is legalized fisheries such as spiny dogfish, which is actually a shark. And the fishermen are arguing that if it's legal for them to harvest this as a food, why can't they sell the shark fins? The problem with this is once you have a bag of dried shark fins, we have no idea if it was sliced off a live shark. We have no idea what species it is unless we DNA test every single shark fin. So because of that, I believe that a complete ban on this is the problem is we do have shark meat and we have legalized fisheries here. So you can't say that we have to ban all shark products. If you look at, like I said, spiny dogfish, that's what you usually get in fish and chips. It is a sustainable fishery in this country and it's a source of income from a lot of fishermen. So it's not really as black and white an issue as, say, rhinos and ivory, because we do have so many different species of sharks. And because some of those fisheries are managed, a blanket ban on all shark products is a challenge.
Do you think it is more important to reduce demand or supply?
Demand, obvious. Yeah, definitely demand. I mean, there has been, as far as demand for shark fin soup, there have been a lot of campaigns out there to try to educate people on the detrimental effects of consuming it, both eating it and both on the ocean at large. And while you've seen a reduction in places like China, where they will no longer serve shark fin soup at official banquets, the demand for shark fin is actually rising in places like Malaysia and Vietnam. It's something the middle class aspires to be able to eat and serve at their weddings. So education is really important to reduce that demand.
So what does your organization do specifically to reduce demand?
It's all about education. So we try to do presentations in areas all over the world. I mean, we did one for Yap, Micronesia, which is all of those kids had seen shark fishermen. A lot of them came from families where they were fishing sharks, and several of the parents came to the presentation. And informing them about sustainability and fishing in a way that you're not depleting the ocean of its resources is really important. So it's about educating people, kids especially. Kids are the next generation of conservationists. And if they grow up seeing their parents fishing and they learn a different way and they learn to take a different path and they learn how important sharks are, then the future is going to change.
What have you learned doing this and what actually works?
What I've learned is that there's no one answer for every species and every part of the world. You know, if you look at an area like the Philippines, where fishermen were fishing for whale sharks, especially those fins, they're enormous, so they bring a lot of money in the market. If that's their only way of life, they're not going to stop doing it. Even if you say, hey, this is bad for the environment, they need to feed their family. So unless there's an alternative, a lot of former fishermen in the Philippines are now taking people out for shark tourism. It doesn't work in other areas. You know, it's very lucrative to fish for sharks and shark fins. So there's not one thing that will work everywhere. You know, one of the big problems, say in the area like the Galapagos, the laws are very strict in Ecuador against fishing for sharks. The problem is there's thousands and thousands of area of ocean that you just can't patrol. So they've got these giant motherships on the outskirts of these protected areas, and they send these little tiny boats in to fish for the sharks and offload to the motherships. Telling these fishermen that they're decimating the environment, it's falling on deaf ears. So there's different strategies. And you know what? In some of those cases, we just don't know what works. We don't know what's going to stop that. So I think the key is, like you were saying, demand. If people aren't buying shark fin anymore and people aren't buying shark meat anymore, then there's no reason to fish for it. I think the media coverage definitely lends people to a greater fear of sharks. So what people need to realize is that there are less than 10 deaths by shark attack every year. You're actually more likely to die by getting hit in the head with a coconut. 150 people every year die from having a coconut land on their head. Hippopotamuses kill more people. Vending machines kill more people. Lightning kills more people every year than sharks. So people need to moderate, try not to be so afraid every time they get in the ocean, that even if there is a shark there, 99% of the time that shark wants nothing to do with them.
What should we do about the vending machine problem then?
You know what? I think the vending machine issue is an example of Darwin at work. You know, it's most of the time people doing something really stupid, like shaking it and pulling it, and it lands on them. And
what stupid things do people do with sharks that get them in trouble?
You know what? People panic. People should be smart about how they're using the ocean. So if, say down Cape Cod, you've got all these seals, it's going to attract the great white sharks. That's not a great place to go surfing, even if the waves look great. It's about being sensible using the ocean. If there are fishermen nearby, fish guts, fish oil, that's going to attract sharks. If you see a shark, the smartest thing is to calmly, and I know it sounds crazy, just calmly leave the water. The more you splash about, the more the shark is going to be attracted and interested to see what you are and what's making that commotion.
Let's talk about shark feeding.
There's definitely different pros and cons to it. You've got a thriving shark tourism industry, and when you bring somebody in the water and they see this beautiful animal in its own habitat, it helps to create more shark conservationists. Controversy stems from the fact that it does change the shark's behavior. They do get conditioned to this. But the interesting thing, so now I went to Tiger Beach, where they have tiger sharks, and I went to Bimini, where they have hammerheads, and they do feed these sharks. It's a risky activity that we all undertake, but to see these animals, it's amazing and beautiful. They did not attack any of us. They did not show aggression toward any of us. If any, the approach was curious. So if you look at whale shark feeding in Philippines, in Oslo, they are feeding the whale shark shrimp. The problem with this is it's keeping them there year round when they should be there only seasonally. And keeping them year-round means now they're only eating shrimp. They're not eating all of the other varied things they'd be eating if they traveled to other reefs. And we don't know the ramifications of the reefs where they're not going, because shark poop is a fertilizer for the reefs, as silly as it sounds. So that in that instance, if you look at it, is you are maybe changing the behavior of the animal to the detriment of that animal and its environment.
Have you ever fed a shark?
I have. When we were at Tiger Beach, they allowed me to feed the tiger shark. And at Bimini, they allowed me to feed a hammerhead, and it was incredible. One of the most impressive things about more so the hammerhead than I experienced with the tiger shark is after I fed the hammerhead, it swam up and I felt I had its body against my hand, and the power in that shark was absolutely incredible. But I didn't feel afraid. I didn't feel threatened. It was exhilarating and amazing to be that close to these sharks.
Reef sharks aren't dangerous, are they?
Any shark can be dangerous in a circumstance. It's like petting a stray dog. It may bite you. You never know. They're wild animals. They are unpredictable. Generally, no, reef sharks are generally not interested in coming anywhere near people. There was a lot of reef sharks along at Tiger Beach. So we had reef sharks, lemon sharks, and tigers. And honestly, the reef sharks were more like puppy dogs. They would lay down in the sand right next to you. It was really interesting, actually, but no, they were not aggressive. We didn't feel threatened by any of the sharks that we encountered there.
Of the 100 million sharks killed every year, which species get hunted the most?
Depends on the area. I mean, we just had a seizure in Brazil of over 28 metric tons of shark fins, and that was blue. Sorry, I think it was blue and short-fin makos, and short-fin makos have just been added to the endangered species list. So it depends on your area which sharks you're getting. Obviously, whale sharks provide a really big fin, and that's usually a specialty on some of the markets in Asia, is that kind of fin. But it's your big pelagic sharks normally. But there's no species really that's exempt from it. So in Indonesia, you've got these epaulet sharks, and they just walk really slowly on the bottom, which means the fishermen can literally just pluck them off the bottom. And they've done it to the point that they are now endangered in that area, and they are trying to repopulate the population. Even though the consumption of shark fin is very low in the United States, finning still happens in our waters. It happens in areas all over the place that you wouldn't expect to be a shark fin nation, and it's all going to feed the Asian markets. And actually, even places like Canada has a very large Asian population, and so there's a demand there for shark fin soup as well.
What are pelagic sharks?
These are open ocean sharks that are not going to be close to the bottom of the ocean or the shore. Things like great whites, like makos, porbeagles, salmon sharks. Those are the big open ocean sharks.
So what's being done to enforce the laws?
There's a lot of undercover work by the Fish and Game Department. I actually attended a lecture a couple years ago by a warden who they did a sting operation, and it takes a long time because since this is illegal to sell shark fins, the vendor has to have trust over the person they're selling to. So they were talking about how this sting took about a year, where they had a gentleman visiting the fish markets regularly trying to buy shark fin, and it took a while for them to gain the trust to actually be able to make a sale and for them to actually bust the establishment for selling shark fins. So it's about undercover operations. It's about watching the ports. I mean, it's inspections. That's how they found the 28 tons in Brazil. And it's about educating people so they stop buying shark fin. If there's no demand, there's no one who's going to try to fill the demand.
What are your scenarios for the future, and how do you think things will play out over the next 30 years?
I think if we continue exactly as we have been, yes, it could be worse. I think we need to make changes. I think there are small changes happening, but we need to really be taking steps in a direction of having a more sustainable way of living. How
can kids like me help sharks?
Well, you're doing a great thing already by creating this podcast and by spreading the word. It's about education. We've had a lot of kids come to Shark Angels and show us the presentations they've done for their classrooms, for other kids. So that's one thing. What I was just mentioning about being aware of what you're consuming. Can you use, real silverware and a reusable water bottle instead of plastic silverware and plastic straws and paper cups that are thrown away? So those are some of the small things you can do. And you can make sure that your family, you're eating sustainable seafood. There's a really great app by the Monterey Bay Aquarium called Seafood Watch that tells you which fish are safe to eat, which are sustainable and are not harming the environment.
Great. We'll put a link to that app in the description. Thank you, Cheryl. Thanks for watching, and see you next time on Nature's Guardians.
Thank you, Mike. It was great talking with you.